good governance and improved livelihoods. So we have worked with the Jamii Media for a couple of years because we very much support their work in giving citizens a space to speak out, a space to voice their opinions, which in other forums may not be very welcome or may be met with reprisals. We work in a couple of countries as well, and also in those countries we do similar work to what we are doing here. But this current engagement on intermediary liability was informed by events mostly that happened in this country, which I think many of us are aware of. Those events revolve around information which was demanded from Jamii, which would have required for it to reveal the identities of people who had otherwise been assured of their anonymity so that they can express themselves about issues happening in their society. You know the case better than I do, but what I can say is that actions such as these, where intermediaries are being put on the spot to reveal the identities of the users of their platforms, have a chilling effect on freedom of expression. They also have the potential to discourage intermediaries, of course, from hosting user-generated content, from protecting the identities of users. And we all know that in a situation where users have a fear that revealing their identity might have repercussions on them, might attract reprisals, citizens withdraw and are not going to freely talk about what is going wrong in our societies. We don't want that to happen. But it's not only in this country where this issue is becoming very important, the issue of intermediary liability and the issue of data privacy. It is an issue that is increasingly becoming of concern in a number of East African countries. Intermediaries are many. We have very many categories. When we talk of internet intermediaries that fall in that category, I think those we are more familiar with include search engines and portals. The likes of Google, those are search engines. Other portals that aggregate content like allafrica.com, those are also portals. Jamii Media also qualifies as a portal because it also aggregates content. We also have internet service providers as internet intermediaries. We have social media platforms, and we have also media that provides a platform where citizens can comment. Those also qualify as intermediaries. And as we all know, very many newspapers these days enable citizens to make comments online. So which places them in the category of intermediaries who might be liable for what happens, for what their users say. So intermediaries are very important because they play a mediating role between the creators of content and the general audience. But as we can see, there have been increasing trends where the intermediaries are held liable for the content that they either host or which they enable to pass through their platforms. Okay. A situation which happened in Burundi not so long ago, there is a newspaper called Iwachu, where the government claimed the newspaper had some comments from readers, the online version, which the government said were a threat to national security. Without identifying the comments which the government found objectionable, they ordered the paper to stop publishing at all for 30 days. and the paper complied. That is a situation which obviously is not conducive for free expression and media freedom, but it's a situation which can happen in many places in Eastern Africa. It's a situation where such caveats, where requirements for intermediaries to monitor what is happening on their forums is actually making it difficult for many people to express themselves, and is reducing the space for free expression and access to information in our region. So in this meeting, we would like to see how best we can, as a group, different stakeholders from media, publishers, civil society in general, even government entities, how do we all work together in order to reduce the liability on intermediaries such that they can continue playing a role as mediums for increasing access to information and for broadening free expression within our regions? We need to ask ourselves, should intermediaries become the police? That every day you wake up and check whether, if you run an aggregation site which receives 200, 300 stories, you go through each of them as like the police to see what you should remove. Do intermediaries have the capacity to do that? Do they have the resources to do that? But even if they did, is that their mandate? I don't think they have the capacity to do that, and I don't think it is desirable that they should do that, except in very exceptional circumstances where such content is clearly objectionable, such as child pornography, or where it incites hatred or extremism. So the only instances where that should happen is where the law clearly holds them liable, but also the laws must be progressive, and what they expect of intermediaries in terms of actions should be proportionate. Should intermediaries, when they don't police and something which authorities find objectionable, ends up on their websites? When they didn't know about it, they didn't benefit from it, should they be punished for that? Again, that is something that we need to think about. That conversation about intermediary liability obviously is related to the issue of data protection and privacy, because we've talked of intermediaries holding a lot of information which they must keep in confidence, specifically about users. But we know that this is a time where many governments are looking for citizens' data, and they always receive it, especially from telecom companies. If you have seen transparency reports by some of the telecom companies which issue them, the government's request for several thousands of users' data each year, including the government where we are now, according to the Vodacom, is the only one I know, or even, is it Tigo or Tigo? Tigo. They issue transparency reports, but Vodafone's, here it's called Vodacom, is the one which is more extensive and has numbers, and shows that every year this government requests and receives thousands of users' data. Now, governments don't always want you to use the law, especially when it's going to be difficult for them. But we know they want this information, but how protected is this information that we have all over the place? Even the ISPs themselves, the telecom companies, many times, they have their ulterior motives where they will want to misuse that information. So in a situation where we don't have data protection laws, where SIM cards are registered, where the government, even private actors, are keen to receive and sometimes misuse users' data, where does this leave the state of privacy and the state of protection of our data? I've spoken for too long, so I'm going to stop just now by saying that by the time we end this meeting, it is hoped that we will have come up with ways in which we can have multi-stakeholder efforts which are pushing for increased data protection, which are increasing for increased protections for people that speak out their minds, and also increased protections for intermediaries against liability for ills in courts that are not of their own making. Thank you very much.